with our June Lunch and Learn. So my name is Sarah Saluski and Jackie, and I'll do a little bit more introduction later. But I work here at the Wood County Health Department right behind you. Welcome to the third floor of the River Block building. If you've never been up here before, this is our Emergency Operating Command Center conference room. Any type of emergency preparedness is where people would be meeting, and we overlook the farmers market, so we thought it'd be a perfect location for today's topic. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about the Wisconsin Rapids Downtown Farmers Market. Again, I work here at the Health Department. Jackie Caratini partners with us a lot, and she works with UW Extension. So some things that you're going to learn about today that Adam prefaced in the email. We'll talk a little bit about how this aligns with my work here at the Health Department. Why is a farmers market important? The types of payments that we do at the farmers market. What the future of the market is going to be, or we're hoping is going to happen soon. And then Jackie's going to talk a little bit about tips and tricks, picking the best produce, storage, preparation, how to talk to farmers. And then at the end of the Lunch and Learn, if we have time during the 12 to 1 o'clock period, if you want to join us, it's optional, but we're going to just go down and walk down to the market. So you can join us if you like, do a little shopping, or you can go back to whatever you need to be doing. Also at the end, I do have some little cash vouchers I'll be giving out, so make sure you sign in your name on that sign-in form and that you put your name into the reusable farmers market bag that we have available. There's time for questions at the end too. I packed a lot into this, so I need to get through it, but it's all really good. Okay, so what is Healthy People Wood County? Has anybody heard about Healthy People Wood County? Oh good, yeah, Julie, she's one of my colleagues, yeah, wearing the shirt. Okay, so the health department is mandated by the state to complete a community health assessment every 5 years. And that assessment is online surveying, one-on-one focus, one-on-one stakeholder meetings, focus groups, gathering secondary and primary data from state, national databases, county databases, and compiling it to figure out what are the health issues happening in Wood County and how do we address them. The how do we address them part is we take that assessment and we create an improvement plan. And that plan has a bunch of strategies and objectives around those health priority areas. And so we work with our health systems to do this as well, because they're also mandated. And we work with 5 different staff here at the health department that help implement that implementation plan. Julie is one of them. I am one. David actually is another. And then Ashley Normington and Christy are working behind you. We're currently in the process of completing a new community health assessment, so I know you all want to read a 173-page document of data, but when it's done, we will definitely send it out to everybody. And the 3 top health priorities at this time, and which look like to be in the next iteration, is going to be around chronic disease prevention, so work with local food systems and active communities, that's what I do, alcohol and other drug prevention partnership, and then the Mental Health Matters Coalition. So why does the farmers market matter from a health department perspective? Our data shows us, and there's all different types of data that obesity data comes from, so anywhere between 29% and 43% of residents are either overweight or obese. Heart disease continues to be a leading cause of death secondary to cancer. We have high rates of utilization for our food share programs, our lunch programs, our Wood County WIC programs. So it's showing that there's this poverty line. We have 1 in 10 residents currently living below the poverty line. So folks need access to get healthy foods. They're needing more nutrient-dense foods because there's heart disease and a lot of obesity happening. And the 2 most preventative factors for obesity and overweight is physical activity and proper nutrition. And overweight and obesity are the #1 indicators for any type of chronic disease. So that's why this work aligns with what we do here. So talk a little bit about why are farmers markets important. I think some of this will kind of be a little interesting to you. So one big category that I often talk about is just increasing access to fresh foods. So when I talk about access, I talk about availability, is it even there, and affordability, can people afford it? And what does that mean? So first, a farmer's market in general just adds another place in a community for people to go access fresh fruits and vegetables, meats, eggs, lightly processed items, maple syrups, honey, canned tomato sauces, green beans, you have it. It adds one more place in the community for that to happen. That location is very important because there's food deserts that I'll show you in the next map, and location choice of where you put that. Also, markets typically accept multimodal payments, so we're going to talk about that a little bit later as well. It's not just cash or credit debit, but there you can accept food share, WIC, programs with Aspire. So folks that have limited income barriers can utilize the farmers market program. And then overall, just chronic disease prevention strategy by increasing nutrient-dense foods in a community. This right here is a map that I just pulled from a database, USDA Economic Food Access Database. And this shows the green area is low-income census tracts that do not have walking mile radius distances of within 1 mile to a local food grocery store. So you can see that on the west side and on the northeast side of Wisconsin Rapids. This is just highlighting the county, the Wisconsin Rapids, which is our county seat area, that there is technically a food desert occurring here. Now you might be surprised because yes, baked quality foods are on both sides here, but when you think about non-vehicular types of transportation and walking distance within 1 mile, those folks are not within distance to those grocery stores for access. So you can also see that our farmers market, even though this is a little small, our farmer market lies right in here. Oh shoot, this is touch screen. Right in here. So it also lies right within a food desert as well. This next one I thought was really interesting as I was looking through my databases. This is a map that shows bars compared to grocery stores. Are you guys surprised by this at all? No. Do you know Wisconsin has a very unique drinking culture, correct? Right, we've all grown up here. So in the United States, besides Wisconsin, there's actually usually a normal 13% more grocery stores than bars per capita. However, unique to us, as we can blatantly see, Wisconsin has 2.7 times more bars than grocery stores per capita. So in general, we're already really lacking access to nutrient, fresh food density. So just trying to help us put in perspective that local food is more of a shift in culture as well. Like many of us, if you have a car, you're like, I can get to a grocery store, no problem. But people who don't have vehicles, it's a difficulty, and Wisconsin already is really not keeping up with the rest of the nation for how many we have in the first place. So that's another reason. I just thought that was kind of fun to share. Okay, another really interesting thing about farmers market is not only is the place and the affordability, but fresh foods are better for you. So in Wisconsin, eating local is eating seasonally. And that has an extra T, I apologize for that. So eating seasonally, your strawberries that are grown from Altenbergs are gonna taste better than the strawberries you buy in November from the grocery store. I pick on tomatoes a lot. If there's tomato lovers, you know the farmer market ones just always taste so much better. The ones out of your mom's or your own garden taste so much better. And I did some research on the chemical use on tomatoes. So your large growers in California actually pick tomatoes when they're green, because they're hard, they don't bruise. You can throw them all in a truck and then you'll get them to the station where they have to be pre-packaged. When they get to the station, they're still green, and then they actually put them in gas houses. They gas the tomatoes to turn them red right before they go on the trucks to come to your grocery store. So even though they look ripe, they're not actually ripe, and they've been ripened with a gas. Yeah. The gas that they use to ripen it is a gas that normally comes from tomatoes. It's an ethylene gas, but it comes when the tomatoes ripen on their own, they produce the gas. So even though you take this green tomato, it's not ready to be ripe, it's not ready to be ripened, you force it to be ripened in color, but not in taste and texture. So next time, even today, if you'd like, if you go to your grocery store, get a tomato, go to the farmer's market, get a tomato, very different. They can also do that with green apples and bananas, in case you want to know. Local food is more nutrient dense. From the moment you pick produce, it starts losing nutrients. So a farmer that's out at the market today might have picked produce last night or even this morning. So it's still very nutrient dense, whereas the produce that is in the grocery store that's not locally purchased was probably picked about 2 weeks ago. You don't really know what happened. It's been on trucks, it's been in storage containers, it's been wrapped in plastic, and then it's finally getting to you. So eating locally is really quite a big perk in that sense. And then empowered shoppers is that I can go down there and I know exactly who grew my food. They can probably show me pictures of their farm. They might even say, oh, if I don't have that today, you could stop out and get the green beans that you need for your canning. No problem, but I do not have that option when I go to the grocery store. It's really hard to tell where your food comes from at the grocery store. Very difficult. So another really great. Also, people like to talk about money, and the farmers market is a big economic developer. So by going to the farmers market, you're supporting local entrepreneurs. Those people are from Wood County and from the surrounding region. They're from all within the state. They're local entrepreneurs, and the fact that they're small business owners by running their own farms or their own craft industries or their own canning and bakery. We have essential oils, things like that folks make on their own. So you're supporting local entrepreneurs. Also, dollars spent. We did a small survey in 2018. We averaged around 700 people a day coming to the market throughout the season. And of the people that came, there was an average of $20 spent per day. So if you take 700 times 20, I think it comes out to $14,000 roughly a day. And there's 40 market days throughout the season. So that was well over $500,000 that's coming to the market in average. So big perk there. And then big picture, if you follow me on this is how public health brains think, is how does the market decrease healthcare costs? Well, nutrient-dense food helps prevent obesity and overweight. If people are obese and overweight, they're more likely to develop chronic health conditions, and chronic health conditions means heart attack, stroke, aneurysm, to which you're going to be going to your doctor and have a lot of issue and secondary issues with, which increase your healthcare cost expense, the healthcare cost that has to be paid in from your employer and throughout the state for those who have Medicaid. So by accessing local food, decreasing obesity, overweight, you're saving dollars in your healthcare system, which hopefully ultimately passes over onto us for our healthcare costs, which are always rising. And the last thing, if you haven't already figured out how amazing farmers markets are, is they support vibrant communities. So when you go to the market, you're more likely to go talk to people, you're going to socialize, where when I go to the grocery store, my running joke is that I always go with hoping that I don't see anybody, because it's always the day that I'm wearing the worst clothes and I haven't showered or done my hair, and I see everybody there that I didn't want to see. And so when I go to the grocery store, I'm like, I'm in out really quick, trying not to be there. At the farmer's market, I kind of like dilly-dally around, as you might say, and I'm talking to the people, and I'm talking to the market vendors, and I'm asking them about their produce and what they're making, and making those connections. So that social connectedness is really important for overall vibrancy and health of the community. Sustainability pieces. At the market, or at the grocery store, one of my biggest peeves is I've been trying to cut down how much plastic I use as a personal objective of mine. And a lot of my peppers come in bags, pre-plastic bags, or I have to put my cucumbers in a bag, because if you just let your produce roll around your cart, it's just a big old mess. And at the market, there's no plastic bags. The vendors do have plastic bags to give out, but that bag that you put your name in, we have about 2,500 of those bags this year that we were just giving out to anybody who visits the market. So they're reusable bags from our sponsors to cut down on the amount of plastic being used at the market. Sustainability piece, as well as the fuel costs. They're not coming from California, it's coming right from here. It creates a destination place, a place that people are proud about, a place that visitors can come to. It's an economic development indicator. And then overall community support. By having a farmer's market, it shows that people appreciate local food, they're supporting their local entrepreneurs, and they see that it's an important asset in their community. Okay, is everyone still with me here? I know there's a lot of words on these slides, so hopefully it's not too tedious and boring. So just want to give you a little bit of history about the farmers market. So in up till 2017, it used to be at the mall parking lot, which is just right up the road here. And the mall manager at that time managed the market, and it was very just transactional. So that manager essentially would just have them fill out a registration form, and that was that. They showed up or they didn't, it was whatever, they went in that booth space. Central River's Farm Shed, which is based out of Stevens Point, used to do the food share EBT transactions for that market at the time. And they helped the market participate in a regional and a community assessment of how is the market doing and what do people want to see happen to it. And some of the feedback that they got back was there needs to be safety improvements. Being in a parking lot, vehicles would just drive through the middle of it. More family-friendly activities, more park-like greenery, a covered structure, and a really overwhelming response that people didn't want in a parking lot anymore. So, as you all know, the mall was sold, and the Boys and Girls Club and YMCA is currently being built right up our road. And we work really closely with Central River's Farm Shed and the Y through that Recreate Health Coalition. And so it was determined that it aligned with our priorities, that we would kind of take over the market to make sure that it happened. Because at the point, it was about three months before the market started, and we're like, who's going to do this thing? we better step in and do this. It aligns with our work. So we took over in 2018. At the mall, we brought in a handicap accessible restroom. We brought in some activities, seating with park benches and picnic tables, a bike rack, added promotion and created our Facebook, and then more engagement with the vendors, as well as always having an on-site presence on every farmer market day to direct visitors and our vendors. In that same time frame, we knew that with that construction that we would need to move in 2019 for this season. We also knew that we wanted to heed that feedback from the Central Rivers Farm Shed that people didn't want to be in a parking lot anymore. So we essentially were just kind of pushed to do it a little sooner than expected, which is fine. The YMCA was very still supportive about the market and would welcome it back if that was the place I needed to go to. So we did a survey and we had over 500 responses. We went to targeted populations and targeted organizations that serve those that had income barriers to make sure that, since we wanted to focus and make sure everyone had access, that they had a say in where it would be placed. We asked visitors and vendors at the market last year, as well as just a general online survey. The number one location that came back, or where people wanted to put the market, was First Ave along the river. Overwhelmingly, everyone wanted it as close to the river as possible and on the west side. That was a big consideration from a lot of folks. So from that to this, what happened? So between the end of that survey, which was about September last year, in November we went and did city permitting for the street closures. We had to work with them for logistics for barricades and pedestrian and vehicular safety, electricity, garbage and recycling containers. We worked with multiple partners. How do we get food share back at the market? That was one of the most tedious projects. So in order to apply to have EBT, you have to have a location. And in order to have a location, we had to have it approved by the city. So we got the city approved, we got our location approved. Then we can apply to be a USDA FNS supplier, a USDA Food and Nutrition Service supplier. Then they give you a number. And then you have to have that number and a location to apply for a grant to get the EBT machine. So then we applied for the grant to get the EBT machine. And then once you get the EBT machine, then you have to apply to a third-party credit debit processor that also accepts food share processing. And then after that, they finally send you the machine. Whew. So it was a long, drawn-out process. It took me a long time to figure out what that process was. So now that it's nice and concise, if you know anybody who wants to do that at market, just have them call me. Because that was about 5 months of work condensed into 1 minute of me talking. So, some payment types at the market. I'll talk about a few payment types, future of the market, and then Jackie will give you some more tips and tricks. So we're almost done with my part. So at the market this year, we're more than just a cash market. We can now accept the food share EBT. So food share, Wisconsin Quest, Food Share, or SNAP card is the three kind of things you'll hear. It's all refer to the same thing. It's just like having a few words for the same thing. Food stamps is not technically the correct term to use any longer, but the other three are. So how this would work, if you have a card, you would swipe it at our management booth where that terminal is available. If you wanted to use $10 off of your card, you would swipe it for 10, and then you would receive wooden nickel tokens. You would receive 10 $1 tokens, and then those tokens can be given to vendors that are selling SNAP eligible foods, which would be anything besides the hot to eat, ready to eat foods or crafts. These are our Double Dollar Day tokens. So Double Dollar Days is an evidence-based strategy. Essentially, we get community donations. So Aspirus has donated some funds, and when we have Double Dollar Days, essentially if somebody comes and swipes their card for 10, we'll give them 10 $1 tokens, and then we'd match it with 10 $1 Double Day tokens. So then they get $20 to spend at the market that day instead of 10. So overall, we'll increase the amount of produce that they can purchase. We also have credit debit. So this is one big thing, and this was a part of the process of the type of machine that we had to purchase in order to do this, besides just being able to do food share. So with credit debit, this is really great. I personally never have cash on me. So if you're a person who doesn't have cash or doesn't have enough cash, you can go to the management booth as well. You swipe your card. There's a $1 processing fee. So if you would like $10 to spend at the market, we'll swipe your card for $11. and you'll get 10 $1 credit debit tokens, and this is used for anything. It's just like cash, but it's a wooden nickel, and it can go to any of our vendors. We're in our third week of the farmers market, and we've done over $700 already in credit debit, so it's been really widely used. Another type of payment form that our vendors are able to take is the USDA Farmers Market Nutrition Program, FMNP, and that is given out through the Wood County WIC department, which is housed within the health department. That's for women, infant, and children. I have Sarah Jo here. If you have any information about WIC that you'd like to share, she will be happy to share with you after the presentation. And then the Senior Farmers Market checks, those are given out through our Aging Disability Resource Center, which is based in the Lowell Center right across the street as well. And those checks are given out based on income limits and household limits, and you have different amounts. Sarah, what is the amount for Farmers Market for WIC this year?
It's $35 total. We get $75 checks to use at the market.
Yep, so $75 checks so that they can use those checks right to the vendors. The vendors don't have to turn those tokens into us for processing after. They can just take these checks right to any bank and cash them just like you would any other check. So these next two payment types are more partnerships that we've created. So Farmers Market have a lot of partnerships. We've worked with Aspirus. Aspirus is doing a fruit and vegetable RX program. This is going through their home medicine clients, their high-risk chronic disease-related patients that are seen at home. We're hoping to expand it out into behavioral health patients as well as pediatrics, hopefully by the end of the summer as a trial. Essentially, this voucher card is a paper card that they get from their provider, and it is a $20 worth voucher that they come to the market with. At the management booth, they gave us the voucher and they redeem it for $21 fruit and veggie RX tokens that then we bill Aspirus and they reimburse us for. So that's been a really great partnership for us. Our last one, which is a new one, which will be giving out some of these vouchers today, is Encourage has decided that they would also like to support the downtown's farmers market. The location is perfect for them. They're right along with us. They also support entrepreneurs, downtown development, and access for everybody. So they have decided to do $5 tokens with an overall total of $10,000 going to the market. So they're giving out these vouchers at their building on days of the market. They're doing Tribune building tours and giving the vouchers out there. And they're also going to do some fun programming in the community and give vouchers out as well. There's no limits, or you could get multiple. Jackie could have 10 and give them to her friends. It's really just to bring people to market. It's not about who you are, what you make, anything along those lines. Again, you bring those vouchers to the management booth again, and you receive credit debit tokens that you can use at the market. So a lot of really neat payment types. Hopefully this makes sense as to why a market can't just pop up and be there. It could, but it wouldn't really have all the amenities and excess that we have now. Okay, so this is my last slide. So future of the market, big news. This just finalized kind of at the end of last week. So this is a proposal. They're still waiting to get the last chunk of funds confirmed. So the thought with the farmers market is that we always have wanted to find a permanent destination for it. We don't want to have to keep moving due to construction. It's really hard to get all the not super hard to get all the permitting for the road closures, but most communities have a specific destination spot just for their farmers market, and it's something that we've been really lacking here in Wisconsin Rapids. So we've been working with the city very closely, our visitors and our vendors, taking all the recommendations and feedback from the multiple surveys that have been going on. And the city had this opportunity to actually invest some of grant fundings from the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, WEDC, into doing a street realignment. So in order to create a space where a farmer's market could go. So this is that 3rd Street that curves here, and this is that Lowell Center. So the 3rd Street, this is just my map, by the way, of kind of showing you, would be realigned to go straight. And by realigning that road, it recaptures quite a bit of land space here that the city would ultimately then own. And that part of this new land space is that they would redevelop a nice parking lot, but part of that would have a feature where a farmer's market would remain with the possibility of an overhead structure and a little bit of green scaping, not park-like, but some green scaping to kind of soften it up. There'll still be parking in this. And then also by recreating these edges, it will be adding 53 on-street parking spots to the downtown. And we all know that parking has been a hot item for our county here too. So that is something, it's still in proposal. It has to be approved by City Council next week, Tuesday, I believe, at 5 p.m. if you're in favor of the market and you would like to come. There is the WEDC grant funding, and then there's local grant funders that are actually chipping in the rest, and so they're just waiting to get those final commitments for this to be happening. So it's looking very promising that the farmer market is going to be finding a permanent home, which is long needed and will be really beneficial for us. Any questions about the market? Yeah.
So if somebody swipes their, say, debit or credit card for $20 and they get the wooden nickel tokens,
Yep.
they can use those throughout the summer?
Yes.
They don't all have to be spent on one day?
Yes, good question. So the credit, debit, EBT tokens can be used throughout any of the market days. You do not have to use it that specific day. So we do have people that swipe and get 50 tokens, and they might use it that day, but if you don't, you can absolutely bring them back. Thank you. Good question.
This is regarding the grocery stores. You said that all of their vegetables and everything are shipped in. Do you know if the grocery stores can buy locally from the farmers? Is some of their produce in the summer local, is what I'm saying?
They can, absolutely. And we have not been able to quite get into grocery stores so much because they're so corporately managed. It's really up to the values and objectives of that store. So the other day, it was in Pick and Save, which used to be Cops. And they do have some items that say like grown in Wisconsin. They're trying to feature. I think they're trying to feature more local products, but generally most products are not local, especially in the winter time. Obviously, if you look what could be grown here. So it's really kind of, you have to look and see. There's some signage, but generally most of it's not going to be local. Yeah, does that help answer?
Yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah, it's really up to the consumer demand to get those corporations to change those practices.
Well, maybe they will now that these farmers markets are giving them a run for their money.
Well, we would hope, yeah. Question?
How, has there been any thought about having the people who grow the vegetables do a pledge for like the amount of pesticides and herbicides that they use on their vegetables?
Oh.
And one, how do I know, that it's going to be better for me and it's just not full of like whatever
Yeah.
methicillin.
Jackie is going to talk to you guys a little bit more about like talking tips with farmers. So that's the one nice thing about the market is currently there's not a great way for us to manage that and do that like check-in on farms to see. So it's really kind of on the vendors to sign if it's an organic farm or not. And it's also an ability at a farmer's market is that you can talk with them and ask if they use herbicides, pesticides, what they use to protect their plants. So that is one of the nice qualities is that you can ask those questions too. And Jackie can talk more about that. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Does everyone feel like they learned a lot about the farmer's market today? Okay, good. Well, objectives, check. Jackie's going to come up here and give us some awesome tips. And then we'll make sure, it's 12:34, we got lots of time. I'll make sure that we pull those names out of the hat before you leave. So if you want to join us on the tour or not, just make sure that you stay in case you win.
This
Yeah.
is kind of dumb, but
No.
I've been down there twice now. Where's the little management thing you're talking about for the tokens?
Yeah, our management booth is under the orange.
I haven't noticed.
Our management booth is under the orange tent. We're working on getting some more signage, but we don't have any money right now. So the county does not give us any money for the farmers market besides my staff time here. So our money is all grant funded, raised or through vendor fees. But the orange
So
booth
it's on the left side.
along the river.
All the way down, yeah, along the river, almost all the way down towards where the food stands meet.
Oh,
It's-
okay.
Yep.
So if you start on this side, you gotta go almost all the way down.
Yeah.
If you start on the side where the food is, then it's right there as you come in, just past the food.
Yeah. And if there's been a couple days where we haven't been able to have the tent up because it's been so windy. So, but normally it's the only orange tent down there. And if you join us on our tour, we'll be going to the management booth today.
Take it here real quick.
Okay, this is your slide.
Okay.
This is all I
Got
gave
it.
you,
This-
actually.
that's
Oh yeah,
okay,
you
we're
need
good.
this. Okay, hold on a second.
I
There you
really
go.
don't, but we're good. So,
That's on the other way.
it does, yeah. Yep.
On the back of the tent, there's a WIC poster, and so it's there on Thursdays and Saturdays. And we have a little fold-out sign, but it just depends on wind. You can put everything out. Yeah. But they're there.
Absolutely. Okay, so as Sarah said, let's talk about really when you go to select food. So how do you know what to pick? And kind of the idea is what's your purpose? So if you're just going to get what's in, right now, what's out and what's in season, kind of know what's there. So if we went today and hopefully you do kind of go on the tour, there's not much there because we've had a really late growing season. Sarah, if you want to pass those out. I do have a chart kind of that goes through what's in season in Wisconsin, but because of our weather, we're really late in spring. So right now, there's just a few things out there. So you still have rhubarb. There's some radishes. There's some spring onions. There you'll find, there was some pea pods. There's a little bit of zucchini. Strawberries are coming. So, but that usually what I tell people, I've spent a lot of time at the manager's booth. I used to think that it was me and I was kind of a creeper, because the first thing I always tell people that I encourage you to do when you go to the market is, first thing you do, you walk around. You take one swoop up and down both sides and you check all the booths out. And I used to think, they're going to look at me like I'm like a bad person, like I'm just kind of walking by. And then I spent enough time at the manager's booth to realize everybody does that. That's okay, because you need to check out to see what everybody has, because not all of the growers have the same items. So especially if you don't know what you're looking for, kind of just do that first swoop and check and see what's all there. So that's okay. So that's the first thing. Do your first kind of swoop to kind of check, and then make eye contact. Kind of, say hi to everybody, check out what's going on. Usually when I talk to people and I ask, why haven't you gone to the farmer's market? A lot of people tell me it's intimidating, because it is face to face and you do have to actually have a conversation. When you go to the grocery store, you don't have to have a conversation with people, right? You go in, as Sarah said, you get your groceries, you make your beeline through, you might mumble to the checkout lady, but you don't have to, and you're out the door. You do talk to people when you go to the farmer's market. So you do have a conversation. And the nice part of it is I want you to have a conversation. So, say, hey, what you got today? What's in season? What's your favorite thing right now? And you asked about, pesticides or herbicides. Ask, hey, what do you use? Are you organic? A lot of times they're going to say, no, I'm not certified organic, but this is what I use. So to get organic certified, I can't talk today, there's a big, it's a pretty hefty process to go through that certification, but they'll tell you exactly what they use. So they'll give you the list and they'll tell you what it is. And as Sarah said, when you're comparing the produce from the store to what's here, it's significantly different. So you're not going to have any waxes on it, you're not going to have any coating, you're not going to have any extra. A lot of times they'll do dips just to make it last longer, that kind of thing. You're not going to get any of that. So most of the time, the other thing I tell people to ask when you go is, what time did you pick? And just kind of joke with them and just say, hey, what time did you get up this morning? What time did you pick? And they'll tell you, I was out at 4:30. I was out at 3 a.m., 5 a.m., loading everything up. So just, sometimes if you don't know how to start and you're uncomfortable, ask, hey, what time did you pick? What time were you out there? The other thing is I usually tell people when you're going, especially now and as we start into the summer and it's 90 degrees out, the earlier you can get there in the day, the better stuff is going to look. Because if it's 90 degrees out, what's going to happen as the day goes on? It's going to wilt. And it can be the best produce that there is, but as that day goes on throughout the day, it's just going to get sadder and sadder and sadder. And no matter what they do, they can't help it. It's just going to start looking just about the saddest looking carrots or lettuce or whatever it is. There's nothing they can do. So if you are looking for the best looking stuff, hit it earlier in the day. So go during your break, head on over, take a walk during your morning break, get your stuff, and then come back. The other thing about that is bring an insulated bag and keep it in an insulated bag or put it in the fridge, because if you put it in your car and it's a 90-degree day, by the time you get out, it's toast. It's not going to be safe for you to eat either. So you're going to get in your car and you're going to go, oh, crap. and it's going to be all wilted and it's going to be yuck again. So that's the other piece of that, is prepare yourself so that you have a way to get it home. So again, hit the fridge, or they have the nice insulated bags. Those work really well too. So kind of prepare when you know that it's going to be market day. So as Sarah said, have the nice bags, but also have something that's insulated so that you can keep it through the day, because if everybody in the room is using the same fridge, it's not really going to work, is it? So kind of plan ahead for that. The other part is knowing what you're using it for. So if you're just getting it to eat throughout the week, that's one thing. But if you know that you want to do any kind of preservation, or if you know that, it's strawberry season and, I want to make some jam, you can call ahead or you can ask. So if you go today and you say, hey, are you going to have strawberries on Saturday? I'd like to get a couple flats. Tell them. Say, hey, I'm going to come back on Saturday and I'm going to get a couple flats, and let them know, and they'll bring it for you. Or, hey, I'd like to can pickles. Can you bring me, a bushel? And they'll do it for you. They'll bring it for you and they'll have it. And a lot of times if you tell them what size you want, you say, I'd like so much this size, all uniform. They'll bring it for you, and they'll have it all ready for you to go. So the more that you, again, have that conversation and let them know, they'll be prepared, and you can almost like put in your own personal order. But that way it's kind of, they're prepared and you're prepared, and it goes kind of both ways. And it's a little bit shopping different especially when you can do food preservation. So again, when we're doing any kind of preservation, you want to have the shortest amount of time from the time it was picked to the time that you're going to preserve. So again, we don't want it sitting out for a long period of time, so I would hit the market as early as you can in the day, and then try to get it into the fridge as quick as possible, and then try to do your preserving as long as possible, or quick as possible. So I wouldn't go home and put it in get it today and wait till Sunday to preserve it, because you're not going to get a good product. So the chance that it would actually spoil is pretty high. So if you are going to do any kind of food preservation, you'd want to get it today and then do the preservation today, that kind of thing. So keep that in mind. A lot of times people think, if I get it from the farmer's market, it's great, it's going to turn out great. Yeah, you're going to have a better chance, but you do need to preserve it as quick as you can. Does that make sense? Okay. And the other part about that is remember I asking them when they picked it, that's part of that too. So the reason we don't recommend that you do any kind of food preservation with stuff from the grocery store is, as Sarah said, it comes a really long ways. And so that stuff from the grocery store might have been picked a week ago. So that's the reason we don't recommend that we do any preservation with it, because it could have been there for a week. So the chances that it might not turn out are really, really high. So we do recommend, but same thing happens sometimes. Most of the time, most of your vendors are going to pick that same day, but sometimes if they're in a really big hurry in the rush, they might do it the day before. So that's why, again, ask, when did you pick, to make sure that it was the same day to shorten that time.
Are they always in the same place? Do they have a specific spot, the vendors, or can they set up anywhere out there?
Nope, so the vendors all have assigned booth spaces
Okay.
on Thursdays and Saturdays.
Okay. So
Are-
they'll always be in the same place.
They'll always be on the same place.
Okay.
Yeah. As one, vendors can register to be a vendor on Thursday, or they can register for Saturdays, or they can register for both days.
Okay.
So there might be an instance where a
Like
farmer's
pickle.
only supposed to be there on Thursdays that
Right.
season, but they
Okay.
might just come in on a couple Saturdays, then they might not be in that same spot.
Oh, okay.
But generally, they're always in the same place.
Okay.
And that's just based on how much space they need, if they need electricity, and what their setup is, so.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question.
Okay. One of the things I wanted to touch base on is washing them. So we talked about any kind of pesticides, and again, when it's locally grown, a lot of times they have a lot less of them, but you still need to make sure that you wash them. So make sure that everything is washed good, scrubbed good. There used to be a lot of things quite a few years ago where people would say, we have to use a special wash for vegetables, things like that. We really don't recommend that anymore, but just getting a good vegetable brush and making sure that you wash them and getting in the crevices. There are, bacteria, things like that are in the ground. So you do want to make sure that you do wash them, and that's important. And especially, again, if we're going to do any kind of food preservation, because what happens when we put it in a jar and we seal it in, we create that anaerobic area, and then that's what they want and that's what they need to grow. So we don't want to actually put it in the create the environment for it to flourish. So make sure that, you know, things like botulism, if we went out right now and we, you know, went into just any average square by square foot of grass, there's going to be thousands of botulism spores. They're everywhere. They're just natural. But they don't bother us out in the ground. They're just there. But when we put them and we seal them into a jar, then they're going to flourish. So we want to make sure that we, you know, create the best environment where we kill them, follow research-based recipes, and wash things properly to eliminate that. Make sense? Okay. I think I covered most of it. Questions? No? All good.
Should I put my cucumbers in my refrigerator?
Oh, all good. So when we talk produce, so that's kind of and you made me think of something else too. I'm going to go back to ethylene gas. So when she was talking about tomatoes and ripening in ethylene gas, it made me think, did any of you ever do one of the experiments we do with 4-Hers is with apples and ethylene gas? Anybody do this? So one of the things we encourage people, if you buy any kind of produce or fruit that's not ripe, one of the things you can do is actually use ethylene gas to ripen your fruit. So we encourage you to take an apple and put an apple in a paper bag with whatever is not ripe, and then the ethylene gas actually comes off of the apple and it'll ripen whatever the fruit or vegetable is naturally. So that method that they use commercially to ripen things, that apple, you can actually do that at home. So that's something that if you have something that happens where there's a storm or something falls and you're like, oh, I don't want it to go to waste, you can actually ripen things yourself by creating that environment and releasing that ethylene gas. But that's one of the things where people say, well, should I leave it out on the cupboard? Should I put it in the fridge? Am I actually prolonging it? And that's kind of one of those things where it's a personal choice. So they don't necessarily need to be refrigerated. They actually can be left out from a food safety standpoint. They don't need to be refrigerated. They can be left out. But it also goes with how ripe is it. So we do recommend that when you purchase things, you look for things that are free of blemishes. You don't want it to have any bruises or blemishes. You don't want to have any soft spots or mold. But then again, if you're growing it yourself or there might be something, then the chances that it's going to actually spoil faster are significantly higher. So if you do leave it sitting out on the cupboard, especially right now, and if you don't have air conditioning in your home, how long is it going to last? Not very long, a couple of days. So by refrigerating it, you're going to extend your time period. So if you're trying to make things last a week between markets and you're going a week from a week, you can put things in the refrigerator. So it really is a personal preference, and it depends how long that you want to do it. If you're doing any kind of food preservation, we don't recommend that you do it for extended periods of time. So try to get it as quick as you can. You can put it in the fridge for a couple of hours, but then do your preservation. I didn't talk about freezing. If you do want to freeze if you buy things in bulk and you want to freeze them, do remember that a lot of your vegetables do need to be blanched. Does everybody know what the definition of blanching is? So the reason that we blanch is that vegetables actually have enzymes in them that cause them to grow. And just because we pick a vegetable, there's nothing in that says, ooh, stop growing. Nothing tells that enzyme to stop growing. So the reason that we blanch, the definition of blanching is putting it under high heat for a very short period of time to stop that enzyme growth. Okay, that's all it is. We're not cooking it, we're not doing anything else, we're just putting it under high heat for a very short period of time to stop that enzyme growth. And so when if you don't, when you throw it into the freezer, so let's say corn, sweet corn, or carrots, things like that, when we do that, if we don't, you ever had something like corn or carrots that came out of the freezer and you're like, oh, it's got an off taste, it's got freezer burn, things like that. Most of the time when someone says it has freezer burn, it's not. It's that it was not blanched. It was just not frozen properly. So most of the time, the blanching time that's the longest is 5 minutes, and that's for corn. Everything else, it's a minute. It's a very short period of time. So you put it under high heat for a very short period of time just to stop that enzyme growth. Then you put it in an ice bath. You dip it in ice because we don't want to cook it. So we're just stopping the enzyme growth, dip it in ice, and then pat it dry, and then pop it into your freezer. So keep that in mind, that if you don't want to have that off flavor before you freeze something, that you should blanch it really, really quickly to stop that enzyme growth. So, questions?
So what's the temperature of high heat?
Boiling.
Boiling.
Yep. So, and I usually recommend that you bring the water to a boil, dip them in, do it for 1 minute, pull them out, dip them in ice immediately, and then pat them dry. A lot of times people will say with things like green beans, oh, well, it's going to cook them. Not if you, again, 1 minute, ice, pat them dry. So most of the time people are actually cooking them, and they're not doing it properly. So.